In case of a typical agile project, we don't, last day if you recall, so basically we don't have those roles like a typical waterfall. We don't have a project manager, we don't have a technical lead or test lead, or those kind of, so we call it a scrum team. Okay, when it's a team, that means it will comprise of developer. We don't have a especially dedicated designation for those. That's the rationale behind, we don't have a typical project manager in a agile projects. The
Okay.
next one,
All right.
I'll share this links with you. You can also practice and get more confidence, and also you can mark those questions which is not clear to you. You can go for a rational why that answer is not applicable. Okay. Dash is dedicated to project manager and coordinates all activities to realize the project.
To real responsibility.
Let's see. No. So the very first is communication. So whatever communication is happening, so Scrum Master has a very vital role. So this is not going to be part of this. That's the reason. It's the job of a Scrum Master to communicate with the stakeholders and everything. So that is not responsibility. So as a Scrum Master, it is responsible on you to remove the impediments. So that's the reason responsibility is not going to be the part. Third is realization part, because if
Why
you
not
feel like,
responsibility again? I'm sorry. What do you say? Why
sure,
not
sure, no,
responsibility?
sure. Responsibility, why it is the Scrum Master responsibility to remove the impediments, okay, and not as a project manager. Because once the resources are identified and it is handed over to the product owner and the Scrum Master, it is the Scrum Master who runs the show. So, on realizing something that a resource needs to be replaced or someone is not motivated, so then he or she reaches out back to the project manager, okay? Because the Scrum Master, if you remember, last day we talked about he's a servant leader. He doesn't have authority to remove someone from the team, or if he feels that the team there is additional work, we need additional resources, and it is through that project manager who is outside the project, Scrum Master communicates and gets that resource available to the team. So that realization part lies with the project manager.
Okay. All right.
Are you getting it?
Yes, I am.
In case you feel like it's not clear or you need further explanation, to stop me.
Okay. Sure.
Next is identify the traditional role as, here be careful, it's a product manager. There's difference between a project manager and a product manager.
C defines requirements.
Let's see. Yeah. See, the reason I'll explain the rationale behind it. See, as a product manager, so identifying the sprint, okay, so this is more to do with the business, how often you want the sprint duration, whether it's going to be 1 week, 2 week, 3 week and 4 week. It is the business or the stakeholder, they wants that decision to be taken in. Second is maximize the return of investment. So again, this lies more with the stakeholders. The third is the requirement part, as you correctly said, as a product manager here. So basically, until unless the requirements are clear, so the typical PO or a product owner will not be able to play that particular role. So it is through the product manager. Under a product manager, there can be multiple POs playing that role. And basically, it is a PO who syncs with the product manager for the vision and the roadmap.
Okay.
Good to go next.
Yeah.
In Scrum product team, they Work all together as a single Scrum product backlog containing dash for the project.
Stories.
Let's see. Yes. So now you're getting it right, the flow.
Mm-hmm.
So reason I'll explain you why others are not, though you're right, okay? So basically at a feature level, okay? So features are broken down into stories. That's the reason your answer should be stories, because when it is at a team level, they work on the stories, not on the product, not on the process. Can you tell me who work on the process part, Farah?
Process is the team that does.
It is a Scrum Master who makes sure all the Scrum process and everything is being followed, okay? And as far as the product is concerned, it is the either the
Product
I'll
owner.
say PO, okay,
Mm-hmm.
or the previous question as we identified, the product manager who works on the product backlog. And
Mm.
team always works on either epics stories, because epics at a higher level, then the team realizes it is at a epic level, and then product owner further breaks it down into user stories and team works on them.
Hmm. Okay.
Okay. In Scrum project, the role assigned one of the product owner is chief operator, chief Scrum product owner, team leader, Scrum leader. It should be very easy for you.
Mm. C. Chief Scrum Product Owner.
Yes. See, it cannot be a chief operator, team leader. So these two things are ruled out because in a Scrum team we don't have all this. As far as
Okay.
goes as the Scrum leader, so it is also more to do with the Scrum Master, right?
Yes.
The Scrum team builds a dedicated dash to effectively work together,
Scrum team will dedicated dash. Scrum process.
right? No.
No. Scrum process.
See, just now I explained you the process belongs to whom? The Scrum Master, right?
Uh-huh.
Here builds a dedicated what? Scrum product owner, because
The
maybe
builder.
the yeah. So the reason the why the rationale is here behind a Scrum product owner is, suppose you are playing the role of a product owner, okay, and the
Mm-hmm.
user stories, acceptance criteria, and the definition of done is not up to the mark. The team is struggling. Once they pull in the user stories, they feel like the acceptance criteria is not good, or there's a conflict between the testers and the developers. The definition of ready, the definition of done or not done. Then they say to the product owner, see, these are the
Can you
things
please
we are
hold for a second, Kaushik? Can you please hold?
sure.
Yes, Kaushik, let's continue.
Yeah. The reason why this is Scrum product owner is because initially, I'll say when I was conducting the workshop in Middle East, they said Scrum Master's role is very vital. I said no. Tomorrow you learn from me how to do that, but a person who is playing the role of a product owner, he or she is the heart of the project. if he or she doesn't have that vision, he or she doesn't know what my product is all about. They offered me to play the role of a product owner. They said, Kaushik, you should. I said, no, I don't have Islamic banking knowledge. So, and I don't know how MX is operating. So, if this role is offered to me, I'll not do the right justification for this role, because as a product owner, so on what scenarios, on what ground you are going to accept those user stories? You should have a vision to link those user stories to the future user stories which is lying in the backlog. So when this product owner is faltering, it is the team who says, hey, this user stories acceptance criteria in the sprint planning, they say it should be like that. And that's how the Scrum team builds a dedicated Scrum product owner. They say that uh, we are having hindrance, the acceptance criteria or the definition of ready or the definition of done. It is the team who gives input, and the Scrum product owner or just a product owner gets better with that.
Okay.
In Scrum team, dash must be present between the product owner and team is crucial for successful implementation of the project.
Syndrome. Knowledge. C. Communication.
Communication.
Okay.
I'll share those slides. Scrum, why and Scrum is different from different if you talk about typical face-to-face communication, one of the key agile principles. Do you recall? Effective
Yes.
communication. So
Okay.
this question is related to that. So that's the reason last day I was saying for I spent some time on the principles. So basically, agile manifesto, you have to be very, very thorough with the 12 principles and those four agile values. So you'll have at least two, three questions sure shot coming from there, and this question relates to there. You said knowledge. So knowledge basically belongs to the team. Okay, so it is a good team who shares the knowledge. As far as understanding is also concerned, they should have mutual understanding. But if the communication is not happening between the team, so in the daily stand up, if they're not coming and telling on the scrum master or the product owner, they are blocked, they need help. So it is the communication which has to happen until unless uh, the team is communicating with each other and saying, hey, you are the SME, you have worked on this, I am working on this user story, I need your help to get this clarified. So that's how it is the communication which flows. Without a communication, the Scrum is or Agile is a total failure. It will again become a typical waterfall. That's the key difference between, I'll say, about waterfall and Agile. So last day, the slide that I was showing. So once the requirements is frozen, and until unless the demo is happening, there is no communication happening between the stakeholders and the development team. But in case of a typical agile project or a Scrum, in the demo sessions, you invite your stakeholders and the product owners and other business people is coming and seeing what is being developed in the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks, right? So
Hmm.
in the demo also there's a communication flow happening between the team as well as the business side. That's how here it is a communication.
Okay.
You make a note, Sarah. You just go through the 12 principles and four agile values. So next day,
Okay.
any of those you have a doubt,